Um, I mentioned earlier that there was this inertia, this momentum inside the Trump administration for war with Iran. They were finally going to do it. And it's coming from the National Security Council. It's coming from some other key national security positions. And the reality in Washington is personnel is policy. Obviously, there's a structure to the broader policy, the neoliberal capitalist structure and so on. But personnel matters. That's the message that AIPAC sends to its members. I was able to obtain audio from the most recent AIPAC meeting in Washington, a major summit called the 2025 Congressional Summit, from an attendee. And basically what happens at that summit is there are some high-level speeches. Netanyahu spoke. Yair Lapid, who's the sort of de facto head of the Israeli opposition, spoke. And those are public. But then there are all these breakout sessions where AIPAC members, their rank and file of Israel lobbyists, listen to the so-called experts who set the agenda for the Israel lobby, and they hear from AIPAC's leadership. AIPAC's leadership are some of the most influential people in American policymaking, period. But you rarely see them having debates. Like, you're not going to see the CEO of AIPAC debating on Piers Morgan. You'll see like Shmuley just running his mouth. These guys fly below the radar, and they're very slick. They're super influential. You rarely get to hear what they say unless you're an AIPAC member. So I got this audio, put out some audio clips that I think are extremely illustrative of how they do business, but more importantly, how the sausage is currently being made on Iran and Yemen. And the CEO, the new CEO of AIPAC, Elliot Brand, declares that he has been grooming the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, for decades, as well as Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz. And he also mentions Elise Stefanik, who is going to be the UN ambassador. And he says, what do they all have in common? I'll play the audio. It's terrible audio, but I'll play it. What do they all have in common? They all came from Congress. And that's the key to, that's why AIPAC loves members of Congress going into national security positions. Let's listen to what he says, and then we'll kind of address it.
We may not lobby the executive, but as we were talking about, there was a discussion earlier about Congress being representative to the people. Well, the White House has to be responsive to Congress. And so it's working with, at the time, our friends on the Democratic side of the aisle to apply pressure the way that they know how to an administration, as it will be with this administration. Bob was talking about the people who will get appointed into some of these jobs. Look at the top level, you talk about Marco Rubio and Stefanik, and Michael Waltz. Those three people have something in common. They all serve in Congress. They all have relationships with key AIPAC leaders from their communities. So the lines of communication are good. Should there be something questionable or curious that we need access on the conversation to? You never know. One of the first candidates I ever met with as an AIPAC professional in my job was meeting candidates for Congress was a guy named John Ratcliffe. He was challenging a long-time incumbent member of Congress in Dallas. This guy looks like he could win the race. When we go talk to him, he had a good understanding of the issues. And a couple of weeks ago, he took the oath as the CIA director, for crying out loud. I think this is the guy that they had a chance to speak to. So there are a lot, I wouldn't call them lifelines, but there are lifelines.
So there are lifelines in there. I thought Ratcliffe was the most interesting mention by Brand, because he's basically saying, you know, we got him elected. He owes his career to us. And now we have lines of communication if anything confusing or unusual happens. So if Donald Trump starts negotiating with Iran and Israel, the state of Israel, doesn't like what it's seeing there, Trump is offering Iran what Israel would consider a bad deal, a pro-peace deal. Well, they open up their lines of communication to their assets who owe their careers to AIPAC which has people in their districts, what Representative Thomas Massie called an AIPAC person in their district. Remember, he was attacked and called a conspiracy theorist for saying that to Tucker Carlson. They call on them, and they call on their contacts in the National Security Council, at the State Department, in the CIA, and they find out what's going on. And AIPAC is traditionally a channel for Israeli intelligence. Remember, I mentioned this in the article that accompanies the video. In 2004, 2005, a major national security espionage scandal erupted in Washington when the FBI arrested a Pentagon researcher named Larry Franklin, who had been feeding classified documents about U.S.-Iran policy to two AIPAC researchers, Keith Weissman and Steve Rosen. And they went to the Israeli embassy and supplied that to Israeli intelligence. So Israel was getting lines of communication there on the Pentagon going to its people. Weissman eventually, I think he got it's not Weissman. Larry Franklin got 9 months in prison for a major act of espionage. And these AIPAC researchers, they just got a slap on the wrist. These were the colleagues of Elliot Brandt. He was there at AIPAC at the time. And Elliot Brandt's predecessor, Howard Kaur, who was CEO of AIPAC in 2004, his office was raided by the FBI. His computer was seized. He was a suspect. That's what AIPAC is. AIPAC is an arm of Israeli intelligence. It was set up by Israeli intelligence as the American Zionist Committee by an Israeli asset in the United States named Isaiah Kennan. If you want to learn more about that, read the work of Grant Smith. He's written books about this. So that's why I think this statement by Elliot Brandt is so significant, and why I think people might even, who are critical of Israel, might even underestimate the power of the lobby, especially in this administration, where these are de facto Israeli assets in there. But there it is. I mean, there are many, many pictures of John Ratcliffe throughout his career meeting with Israeli officials and Israel lobbyists, and it's not exceptional in Congress. What's exceptional is if someone doesn't have an AIPAC handler like Thomas Massie and they manage to survive. So we have other audio up there. It's on YouTube. It's on the Grayzone site from other figures. Dana Stroll, who, Aaron, you've
Well, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that that's my favorite part of your piece, on top of the leaked audio, is the extensive appearance of Dana Stroll, who's now with the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, right? Is that the think tank she's with, the neocon think tank?
Yeah. It was founded originally out of AIPAC.
Yeah, and who is she? She's the former senior Biden official in the Pentagon for the Middle East, and before that was the co-chair of a congressional panel on Syria, and she's the one who's in that clip that we played so many times, where she's bragging about how in Syria, most of the country is rubble and Syria is desperate for reconstruction, but we can prevent that through our sanctions. And also that we own 1/3 of Syria, where the valuable agricultural and oil reserves are. And we can basically keep Syria impoverished to pursue our goal of regime change. And now in your piece, she's there talking with AIPAC and others about how we have to defend Israel, we have to repair its public image, how all these images of dead children are not good for Israel, so we have to do something about that. And this is the agenda that was served in Syria. And I just, in reading this piece and seeing, Dana Stroll make plain what her agenda is, which is promoting Israeli interests, I'm just reminded of all. And again, we don't want to get into a tangent about Syria, but all the self-identified leftists, progressives, adversarial journalists who sided with people like Dana Stroll in Syria under the guise of thinking they were, part of some great revolutionary project. While now Dana Stroll makes plain that her agenda is serving in Israel, which was a motive, not entirely, but it was a motive for the regime change war in Syria as well. So her presence in your piece on AIPAC, bragging about its access to the U.S. government and essentially helping influence U.S. government, is very, very appropriate.
Dana Stroll, or Stroll, is it Stroll?
Stroll. Rhymes with ghoul.
An AIPAC attendee told me she was, talking about how she was rushed to the Pentagon to manage a massive shipment of weapons to Israel like as soon as they learned about October 7th. And the first thing she had to do was put her kid in Pentagon daycare. Like she had to put her kid in daycare in order to slaughter other kids. She was, the Syria Study Group. She's now at the main think tank of the Israel lobby, where the ideas that AIPAC advances and imposes are conceived. And she was the top ranking civilian on the Middle East at the Middle East division of the Department of Defense. So she's basically an Israel lobbyist or an Israeli kind of asset is there. And she was on all the calls, including with the Red Cross, after Israel began using the weapons she helped to authorize and organize from the U.S. stockpiles, U.S. reserves, destroying Gaza City, destroying northern Gaza, just mass slaughter in the first weeks. And the director of the Red Cross for the Middle East told her that they're witnessing atrocities on a grand scale and can't get any aid in. And she actually acknowledged this in leaked emails that were sent to Reuters. She acknowledged the possibility of atrocities and told her bosses. And now here she is again at AIPAC in a kind of secret meeting. Like there's nothing online that says that she was speaking to AIPAC. And she's blaming the whole thing. I mean, you can go listen to the audio on Hamas having a deliberate strategy of, in her words, putting children and civilians on the front line. Just absolutely disgusting. And, if there were a Kamala Harris administration, she would be in it at a high level. So this audio might not shock everyone, but I think it's important for the historical record to have it in their voices and to lift the veil. I mean, that's what we always try to do at the Grayzone, is to just provide people with an inside look at how imperial policy is made. Not just doing commentary and editorials and polemics like we do here.